the tragic news of Mick Jagger's girlfriend. He's speaking out now for the very first time about her apparent suicide.
And this just goes to show you never know what's really going on, because I can't get this out of my head. This is somebody who seemed to have it all. A rock star boyfriend, the love of her life, her own fashion line, celebrity clientele. So why?
And to continue to compete.
She could have been more in debt than any of these papers or business filings show.
You have much more to lose in life by.
That invites people to watch a show, a presidential clothes, and serve them these beautiful meals.
Well, don't forget, I spent my years of going to shows, darling.
Yes.
I thought this is my moment to be treated how I would have.
On the morning of March 17, 2014, in Chelsea, Manhattan, the sky was solemn, the house was quiet, and so was her text. Come by at 10. Let yourself in. That's all it said. By the time her assistant arrived, it was too late. L'Wren Scott, the fashion icon, partner to Mick Jagger, the woman who dressed first ladies and legends, was gone. She had taken her own life. The silk scarf that once wrapped royalty now hung from a doorknob. No note, no final words, just the echo of silence in a home full of beauty. How does someone surrounded by elegance end up buried in so much debt and despair?
Business filings in the UK for her company LS Fashion showed that it was running at a deficit of $5.9 million, while she owed creditors over $7.5 million.
Long before red carpets and designer gowns, she was just Luann Bambrough, born 28 April 1964. People knew her just as a girl from Roy, Utah, adopted into a quiet Mormon family and raised with traditional values and small-town routines. But from a young age, Luann didn't fit the mold. By high school, she was already 6'3". The more people stared and laughed, the more little Luann felt out of place. She was too tall, too different, too visible in a town that celebrated blending in. The girl who once slouched to hide her height would one day walk the runways of Paris. All because one photographer, Bruce Weber, saw something no one else did. He saw elegance in her awkwardness and gave her a chance.
So that was sort of.
Well, you can have mine.
No, you keep that one.
Where did this idea come from?
It's sort of, I always like a bit of a theme, I think. I always think if you're going to sell it, you have to sell it with a look.
Absolutely.
And you need to show people the atmosphere that you intend as well, your collection to be in. I mean, I think it's a whole fantasy in my mind.
Yes.
Of who's that girl, what's that lifestyle, where's she going, how's she wearing it.
One of the greatest things that you've done is created a civil moment in fashion. You're the only designer I know that invites people to watch a show, a presidential clothes, and serve them these beautiful meals, a symphonic moments of beauty and style.
She soon moved to Paris, reinvented herself, and changed her name to L'Wren Scott. The pseudonym sounded bold and mysterious, like someone who belonged in a fashion magazine. She thought Luann didn't belong in that world, but maybe L'Wren did. Did she reinvent herself to find freedom, or was she already hiding behind the name?
Don't forget, I spent my years of going to shows, darling.
Yes.
I thought this is my moment to be treated how I think it should be done.
Yes.
So this was, when it's your own business, you have the luxury of that.
You're always glamorous.
Thank you.
I'm sure that you're even glamorous when you're in a pair of jeans.
Well, I sometimes think it's a state of mind too, being glamorous. I mean, I like to get dressed, but at the same time, I don't like to be overdressed.
What do you sleep in?
Oh, well, it depends. I like a little luxury.
A little luxury.
Or nothing.
Did you get that? Luxury or nothing? Just too beautiful for words. Too beautiful.
In Paris, her height became her power. Designers who once ignored girls like her suddenly wanted her on their runways. She walked for Chanel, posed for Thierry Mugler, and even became a muse for Karl Lagerfeld. But even as she conquered the world of modeling, L'Wren felt something was missing. She didn't just love the clothes, she understood them. She could see the structure beneath the fabric, the way a cut changed how a woman stood, the way silk made someone feel safe, even powerful. So she stepped off the runway and behind the scenes, becoming a stylist. And she didn't just choose outfits, she built entire images. After Nicole Kidman's painful divorce from Tom Cruise, it was L'Wren who gave her a new look, elegant, graceful, and untouchable. She did the same for Madonna, Sarah Jessica Parker, Oprah. Her client list was a who's who of icons, but her eye was sharper than most. She styled like an architect. Every look had purpose.
The fashion industry is a pressure cooker. The demands are huge. We're squeezed from every end. Your suppliers want to be paid in 30 days or upfront. The stores want to be paid in 90 days and they want to take a discount. There's no one in the middle to help an American designer.
At age 42, Loren launched her own brand. Her signature pieces were structured, tailored, and unapologetically feminine. Her little black dresses didn't just flatter, they transformed those who wore them. Yes, she built clothes like armor, but was it for them or for herself? And what happens when the image becomes more real than the person behind it? Let's see how Mick Jagger coming into her life would help us answer these questions.
This is one of the most stable, secure, and strong relationships he's ever had. He'd be laughing along with her, holding on to her. It always seemed like they were inseparable and they were very happy together.
Visionary. When I start to explore something, I kind of don't stop until I can push it as far as it can go.
And this just goes to show you never know what's really going on, because I can't get this out of my head. This is somebody who seemed to have it all. A rock star boyfriend, the love of her life, her own fashion line, celebrity.
Mick was one of the most famous men alive then. From the moment they met in 2001 during a photo shoot, they were rarely apart. Loren towered over him in heels, standing 6'7". But Jagger didn't mind. He loved her presence, her grace, her strength. They were polar opposites on paper. Rock and roll fire meets couture control. But together, they made sense. They lived between worlds: New York, London, Paris, balancing fame with privacy. While she designed, he toured, and together they moved like a unit, even if their lives were spinning in different directions. He once called her brilliant, said she was independent, and he admired that. She called him her anchor, safe, steady, and familiar, a calm voice at the end of the day. But even anchors have limits, even love has boundaries. And when the weight of the world got too heavy, he couldn't hold her up, proving that when the boat starts sinking, the anchor can pull you under too.
I can imagine she had a lot of pressure on her to be on Mick's timeline as well as Loren's timeline. And I'm sure that she never asked Mick for a dime. He might not even known that she was in debt. This champagne gold shot lollipop.
I know. Did you have one
brilliant.
yet?
I had about 6.
Andre's last sit-down interview with Loren was for London Fashion Week last year at the Cafe Royal Hotel.
You're the only designer I know that invites people to watch a show, a presidential clothes, and serve them these beautiful meals.
Well, don't forget, I spent my years of going to shows, darling.
Yes.
And I thought, this is my moment to be treated how I would have.
By 2006, Loren Scott had done it all: modeled, styled, designed. She wanted more than a career. She wanted a legacy. So she launched her own fashion label. It was elegant, powerful, and carefully crafted. She didn't follow trends. She created timeless beauty.
Here we are backstage at Loren Scott's London show. She's a very well-known brand in America, and she just needs to kind of do the extra push in Europe. New York really is about business and about growing a business, whereas London is really the hub of creativity, and it's built a really great reputation about being a creative kind of force to be reckoned with. The fact that she's actually joined here with some other high-profile designers really adds to London's critical mass as a kind of market leader for fashion and for business. Thank you very much for having us here.
Excited to be in London.
I know.
Every dress was a masterpiece. Inside the fabric, she had corsets and seamwork most people would never see. She once said the secret to feeling strong wasn't the look, it was the structure. She believed in building garments from the inside out. But perfection has a price, especially when you refuse to cut costs. Only the finest silks from Italy. Only the best hands to stitch them. No shortcuts, ever.
Carpet designer. She had a roll call of Hollywood celebrities who completely and utterly trusted her. The first dress that Nicole Kidman wore of Loren's on the red carpet was this nude sequin sheath from her second collection, Under My Skin. And it's absolutely Loren through and through.
It caused a sensation because it was just pure Hollywood glamour. No extraneous detail, just a beautiful shape.
It was almost like she was wearing her skin, but it was her best skin. Loren Scott always wanted her wearer to be comfortable and completely confident. And that's why she was so popular on the red carpet.
The brand was admired. Her red carpet moments made headlines. But behind the applause, LS Fashion Ltd was quietly sinking in debt. By 2012, her company was in serious trouble with the debtors, and by 2014, it was drowning. The debt had climbed to nearly $7 million, 0 cents. In February, she canceled her London Fashion Week show. The official reason? Production delays. But insiders knew better. Something was off. The silence around it was loud enough for the deaf to hear. Why didn't she ask Mick Jagger for help? Was it pride or something else people didn't know? Those who knew her said she had become distant, quieter than usual, and distracted. She looked tired, worn down by something she wouldn't talk about. Rumors began to spread about stress, about her finances, even about self-harm, but she never confirmed anything. She smiled through it and kept working.
Yes.
Loren canceled her appearance at this year's London show. That prompted Andre's last attempt to make contact.
I emailed her on the 18th of February and I said, I didn't see your clothes online. Are you okay? Wishing you well. And she never responded back. And it said to me, that signal to me was something's wrong, because she always answered.
Today, Loren Scott, a fashion designer who was also Mick Jagger's girlfriend, was found dead in her New York apartment, an apparent suicide. A former model, Scott launched her fashion label in 2006. Celebrities including Sarah Jessica Parker wore her designs. At 6'3", she towered over Jagger. They'd been together for 13 years. Loren Scott was 40.
In her final weeks, Loren was still holding on, still trying to keep her world together. Just days before her death, she paid off taxes on her apartment in full, like she was still planning for a future. She didn't want pity, didn't want anyone to see her struggle. She had built a reputation on elegance, strength, and control. Letting go of that would feel like failure. So she hid it all behind the beautiful gowns, the public smiles, the designer heels and sculpted hair. She wore silence like a shield. But even the strongest armor still cracks, isn't it? And when it did, there was no sound, just the quiet unraveling of a woman who had run out of ways to hold herself together. On March 17, 2014, Mick Jagger was in Australia with the Rolling Stones, preparing for a show. Thousands of miles away, in a quiet Chelsea apartment, Loren Scott sent her assistant a short text, "Come by at 10, let yourself in." By the time the door opened, it was too late.
I think that's what has everybody so confused. Loren flowed from career to career effortlessly, seamlessly. There's no reason to understand that she wasn't the woman who had everything. She was a model. She was a stylist. She was a designer. She was with the most glamorous, fabulous man in the world. You know, she was on Mick Jagger's arm. She understood women. She made women look beautiful. She made them feel glamorous. She was unique. She was sexy. She was provocative. She was never vulgar.
Loren had taken her own life. She left a black silk scarf, one of her own signature fabrics, tied to a doorknob. The apartment was still and elegant, even in grief. The woman who had spent her life helping other women feel powerful, sculpted in silk and structure, now used that same silk to say goodbye. The same fabric that gave women power took hers away. Was it the money, the pressure, or something no one ever saw? When Mick Jagger heard the news, he was shattered. He canceled the entire tour. In a public statement, he said he was devastated, struggling to understand how the woman he loved could end her life so suddenly.
Mick's first words today on Facebook: "I am still struggling to understand how my lover and best friend could end her life in this tragic way."
We'd have conversations for hours on the telephone, and there was never any semblance of anything that was dark or disturbing in her personality or her conversation.
Only E.T. has Loren's personal friend, Vogue contributing editor and Zappos artistic director Andre Leon Talley. Their relationship has lasted over a decade.
I never thought for 1 second or ever heard that Loren was suffering from depression or had tried to harm herself or take her life ever. I think she had a band of friends who didn't know the other side of her beautiful, glamorous life.
She left her entire estate worth around $9 million sent solely to him. No letters, no instructions, just everything she owned handed to the man who couldn't save her. Later, reports surfaced that Mick had filed a $12,700,000 0 cents insurance claim, money meant to protect the tour from sudden illness or death, but the documents leaked, revealing private medical information and sparking tabloid headlines. Her story was no longer just a tragedy, it was turning into a spectacle. If he loved her so deeply, why couldn't he save her? And maybe the harder question is, did she want him to?
Let's talk about Mick Jagger. He's back in the U.S. planning his girlfriend Loren Scott's funeral. Now there are rumors that the Rolling Stones had actually banned her from their tour. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, listen, from people that knew Loren Scott, they described her as very talented, very almost stoic, so very refined, but a person who would keep her inner feelings to herself. And nobody likes to be rejected, and especially if somebody is in a very depressed state, we don't know what any kind of rejection can mean to them. I'm sure the fact that Mick Jagger's band members didn't want her around was not the straw that broke the camel's back. It sounds like there were multiple stressors going on, and what's really scary for people is to think you can know somebody and not recognize their suicidality.
Loren Scott's dresses still walk red carpets today. Her designs are archived, admired, and worn by some of the most powerful women in the world. But her true legacy isn't found in silk or sequins, it's in silence. She reminded us that perfection can be a prison, that even those who look strong may be crumbling inside, that success doesn't protect you from shame, and that sometimes the most graceful people are the ones fighting the deepest battles.
Suicide impulses, but the truth of the matter is it's not always visible to somebody who really wants to keep it a secret. They can. And so it's just unfortunate because she was a woman described as having so much talent.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to skip ahead because
Loren built images, beautiful ones. She helped other women become versions of themselves that felt powerful. But who helped her? Who was there when the stylist came undone? Though she died alone, her story still speaks to all. Not just to fashion lovers, but to anyone who's ever felt like they had to smile through the storm. Loren Scott didn't die because she was weak. She died because she thought she had to be strong, alone. What strikes you most about Loren's story? Is it her upbringing, her iconic entry into the fashion world, the piles of debt she left unsettled, or her uneventful passing? Kindly share with us in the comments.